All right, it is 11:30 a.m. Central. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody onto our call, onto the webinar today, where we are going to be exploring uh, an understanding and a practice of greater emotional intelligence. It's really one of the hot buttons, if you will, right now in leadership development. In fact, I had a representative from Google recently call me up trying to convince me to do some, advertising with them or whatever. And uh, he relayed to me that he was tracking the number of searches for different topics: leadership development, executive coaching, business coaching. The number one, and this might have been over just the season that he was talking with me about, but the number one searched for field was on emotional intelligence, which is fascinating, and there's a reason for that. And there's a lot of what we do here at Character Genetics with our workshops, with our coaching and consulting that really addresses that whole area, because it really does make a big difference in our leadership capacity, our effectiveness, as well as just our own lives and well-being. We're going to get into that um, a little bit more here. So I've got things popping up on my screen here. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Let me see if I can turn this off. I'm not sure what's going on. I'll quit iTunes. Okay. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thanks. For those of you who are familiar with character genetics, I think most of you are, but when it all boils down, we think, what do we really deliver to people? Hopefully it's this: we deliver accelerated, measurable, sustainable change. Transformation, that whole truth that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds, and that whole process that happens. At Character Genetics, we want to bring processes, tools, systems, support for people to really engage with that and be able to see their lives transform, their health transform, their relationships transform, their job performance, their businesses, their finances. And it's not only possible, there is an absolute way to do it. It's not mystical or confusing. There's a really concrete, practical, step after step process that we can to get accelerated, measurable, sustainable change. And so that's what we have worked to deliver. We do that in several different ways. And here's a quote of a friend of mine. It says, "We have more books, quotes, and workshops on leadership than ever before." And that's true. And yet, we have a leadership crisis. His thought is it's a character crisis at the core. That's Gordon Riddle Pennington. I agree with him, and I define character this way. Our character is the real inventor of our results. Our character is responsible for what shows up in our lives. And it's that core thinking and values that predetermine one's behavior and results that I'm talking about. When I talk about character, I'm talking about that core thinking and values. We'll talk about this. Even the research shows that more than 90% of the decisions we make, they're made down there in that subconscious part of us, that part below our awareness. We're going to look a lot about that today. In fact, even the graphic, the picture that I had for the workshop today, I thought was a really good picture of that. It was the iceberg, with the tip of the iceberg up above the water, the IQ, the conscious mind, what I'm aware of, and then all of the hugeness of that iceberg underneath the water level, or hidden, so to speak. And then there was the letters EQ. I think we've got some on slides coming up. And that's so true statistically, that what frames how we see the world and how we make decisions is really happening down in that subconscious place, a place really where emotional intelligence is ruling that space. And so it's very interesting, because if what's creating our results is mostly underneath of our awareness, that causes some real interesting challenges and opportunities. First of all, to get aware and find out, how do I really know what's there, and then how do I shift things once I find out what's there to be able to create the results that I want: peace, joy, life, hope, etc., etc. So in this time together today, we are going to really look at this, why it's so important and why it's such a big predictor of our performance. And I don't mean performance in a bad way, I just mean how we show up. It's actually statistically, scientifically even, provable that emotional intelligence is a better predictor than employee skill or knowledge or expertise of the kind of excellence that is going to be. That's really amazing to me. But that's the truth. And so in the webinar, we're going to look at how do we understand emotional intelligence, what's the basic framework for it, and then I want to give you some tools. I recorded a teaching here not too long ago, a video teaching. I'm going to play that for us, and it's really going to hit at the way that we work with folks to discover what's going on in that unawareness, in our emotional intelligence, and then how to shift it. I'm going to give you some tools today, and at the end of our time, we're actually going to do an exercise to begin to practice these tools that hopefully when you leave here, and we are recording our webinar today, so you'll be able to go back and see it, you'll have some tools and some basic framework and understanding, and I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a real benefit to us, and we're going to look at the tools, but then what are the costs and benefits for making decisions from that emotional foundation, what happens there, and to discover what's really stopping you in your tracks that you may be completely unaware of. It's very interesting, and we're going to learn a process, as I said, for mastering that self-governing and performance. So here's the science behind it. I use the science. There's lots of science behind this, but the Genius study asked this question: why do some people consistently achieve much greater success with less effort, while others who work just as hard or in the same, just as intelligent, or even in the same environment, achieve much less? And I mean, these were very pronounced experts, and they did the study. You can see the type of individuals. This was not a small study, by the way. This wasn't a 1,100 poll just to get the the sampling. This was a massive study, 197,000 employees from 23 countries. And here was the basic takeaway from that study. There was no statistically significant correlations between performance and natural talents. There were two acquired talents or skills: self-awareness and authenticity, that set what they call genius level leaders or elite leaders apart. Anyone could do it. They contested from the research, depending on not depending on skill set or environment or how hard they work, but these two things, self-awareness and authenticity, which are two huge components of emotional intelligence. So just a background: the way that we do this through character genetics is we work on this thing called the govern mantle, shaping culture, developing impact and influence, and it really is a process that the overall umbrella of what we're doing is to grow in what I call the govern mantle. And here's how I define that: the mastery of governing self, sphere, and culture, resulting in maximum life imprint. And it's an inside-out job. That's what you see down on the slide here. It starts in me. When I gain a personal authority, when I govern myself, my thinking, my emotions, my relationships, my finance, my health, when things that are personal to me, when I am successful at governing that, and I have authority in that place, and I'm getting fruit, and I'm actually demonstrating and realizing the promises that I have, my potential that's available, that then I bring that powerful self to whatever my assignment is in my sphere. and I bring myself there in a powerful way, and I get results there. I solve problems there. I create trust there. I create solutions there. I trust people, honor people. I'm trusted. I'm honored, and I grow in that authority from the inside out. And then it's an interesting thing that happens. Either opportunities come my way and I have positions that are expanding my influence, or many times a person here will create their own opportunities and, begin to step into what's more in their calling or their sense of purpose and passion. Ultimately, then, really making a difference as they're governing themselves. And this emotional intelligence is just such a huge piece of this. If 90% of why we do what we do is below our awareness, and that's where that emotional intelligence really is at play, then this is a big deal, because when I'm making it happen here inside of me and in my sphere and in the opportunities that come or I create, then I actually have an opportunity to partner and collaborate with others and really impact powerfully culture, whether that's the culture of my home or my business, my city, and the nations. I mean, my belief systems are that we are to impact nations, disciple nations, and that's not too big of an assignment or a task. It's not an impossible thing. It's actually a very possible thing if I'm equipped to do it. So that's kind of the big umbrella that I wanted to talk about. Self-governing. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to save a little time. I want to make sure we have time at the end. Let's look at this. Here's a basic framework. Okay, there's a lot that's written out there. There is a lot. I'm going to give you some recommendations, even of a couple of books that I found helpful in this later in the call. But here's a basic framework. When somebody says, "What are you talking about? Emotional intelligence? What do you mean?" Here's what I'm talking about. Emotional intelligence, and you might see it referred to as EI, emotional intelligence, the actual acronym, or EQ. You've got IQ, you've got EQ, now you've got LQ, your leadership quotient, and on and on. But emotional intelligence is the ability, the skill, to monitor one's own and other people's emotions, to discriminate between different emotions, to know the distinction, to know what's really going on, not only in myself but in others. And I'm not just talking intuitively, that's part of it, but even just through how we relate. I become aware and I'm able to discriminate the different emotions and label them appropriately. And here's the key, and to use this emotional information to help guide my thinking and behavior. So this is a skill of growing in a number of things. And here are the key frameworks that I want to talk briefly about. The number one component of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Is this knowledge, and there's the picture there, you can see the iceberg, and the above the water is the IQ, and that's kind of the conscious mind, roughly 5 to 10%. It's kind of like the RAM on a computer. It's that short-term memory. It's a lot of what's making happen in the moment. But the hard drive down underneath, it's really got all the massive memory and storage, and it's really it's the reservoir of what's really going on that the RAM is accessing very quickly to make things happen. And self-awareness is an enormous area that we work on with character genetics. And any good leadership development, character development, any good personal growth is going at some level, probably right out of the gate, to not only teach information, but this is what I like to do, bring experiences where emotional intelligence can be discovered. Self-awareness. What is really going on under the hood that I'm unaware of? There's actually simple tools. We're going to teach them to you, and we're going to use them today. And we grow in these, but it's a powerful, and in fact, it's the first workshop that we do, Character Genetics, 16 hours, the Reveal workshop, and it's all centered on self-awareness, growing in this skill set. And we also focus it around, character qualities and self-awareness, like trust, honor, communication, listening, giving and receiving feedback, forgiveness, and a number of other things. But self-awareness is a key piece of of emotional intelligence. And secondly, personal responsibility. It's a big deal. Once I am aware, then what do I do? How do I use this information that I am now aware of and I'm in touch with? In fact, it's only those who really grow in this piece of personal responsibility that are able to really make shifts, because if it's always just out there and I don't do anything with the information, I don't make choices, I don't make decisions, then I'm not really benefiting from what I've become aware of. Personal responsibility. In fact, that's our second workshop, Respond. It's a 90-day workshop where it's an experiential weekend on the front end and on the back end with more experiential modules that are helping you to identify the belief systems, and really we focus on personal responsibility. I have a friend, Dr. Taylor Cox, who is a retired tenured professor from the University of Michigan. He's been through all of our work, and he coined this phrase, and I like it. He said, Randy, what you got here in Respond especially is a really good accountability apparatus. So there are systems and tools and masterminds that we work on together weekly, between our two weekends, and we really create an apparatus for accountability to take personal responsibility for what we become aware of. Really important. Third is sustained motivation, or really ongoing action, and that's Resolve, our third workshop that we do. It just so happens that unwavering adherence to action that agrees with your core values and your vision, your mission. How many of you have made change for a short period of time? You just got really determined, you just got the willpower, you just white knuckle it, whatever, you were able to make some changes. I think we can all probably relate to that. This is something different. This is, how do I make a shift in my thinking and my responsibility, in my ability to take action, so that I continue, that my transformation is sustained. I don't just hit my goals for one quarter in the business, but I'm able to do it quarter after quarter after quarter, year after year, that my relationship doesn't just grow hot for a month, but it can continue to grow month after month, that my peace, my joy, all that can continue to grow. Those are all really, really important. And then there's a couple of super ingredients to emotional intelligence that I want to include here. One is empathy. The presence and the practice and awareness of empathy is really a powerful expression of a high EQ. Meaning, my dad, matter of fact, I tell this story sometimes. My dad taught one class when I was a little boy, I grew up in church, and I grew up Sunday school, and there's one class. He wasn't the upfront kind of teaching kind of a guy. He was a banker, and he was really relational, but he was quiet. But he taught one class, and I'll never forget it. I was a young guy, and he taught on empathy. He taught about walking in another person's shoes, really understanding what other people are feeling, what they're facing, what's going on for them, and he lived that. He practiced that not so much as a teacher, but just as a father. He demonstrated empathy. I watched him as he cared for people, and he paused, but he was patient with people, and he was kind with people, and he asked good questions, and he was just present, and he was aware of what other people were facing and what they were struggling with. It's very powerful. And we grow in that. That's a good evidence that EQ is taking root and having an impact, is when empathy is present. And finally, trust. And this is a huge one. I'm working on this on the side, on the background. I'm going to do another webinar and do a new module or two on trust, because trust is such a critical ingredient to successful people, relationships, organizations. A high trust culture is highly valued, highly coveted, really. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's what I mean by that. I mean a high trust culture that has at least these four components. There's some more, but 4 for today. Here are the components of a high trust culture. 1, acceptance. It really answers and addresses that core question inside of every human being: do I belong here? Am I accepted here? In a culture that has acceptance, it has a high emotional intelligence, and acceptance has been cultivated as a part of the culture, man, it scratches an itch deep down inside of the employees and the leaders that are like, I belong here. I'm a part here. I'm not just an external piece, not just an appendage, I'm not just an add-on. I am an integral part of this family. I'm accepted. A second key component of a high trust culture is significance, and answers this question: do I matter here? Is who I am and what I bring needed? Is it significant? Do other people see it? And not so much am I necessarily, rewarded for it and all that, but am I significant? Do I have that sense in this culture that I'm significant, I matter here? Third key component is congruence or agreement, and that answers this question inside: do I agree here? Am I in agreement with the direction of this church or nonprofit or organization or my family? Do I agree with the direction of my city or my country? Am I in agreement here? Am I incongruent? And not only just do I agree, but how intensely do I agree? Is it a passionate sort of strong commitment type of agreement, or is it a kind of a passive sort of compliant, well, yeah, I'll go there? Big difference. In fact, we evaluate with organizations on these key components of a trust culture. A lot will be determined in the answer to this one. How congruent, how strongly in agreement are the stakeholders in any organization? And that will answer a lot of questions about what's going on and show areas for growth. I'd say a lot more. I'm going to move on because I want to make sure we get to our training video and our exercise. But the last one is excellence. In a high trust culture, there is excellence. There's competency. There's skill. And not just for the organization, but I have a personal sense of that. And as does each person in the organization, I excel here. I'm the right person with the right skills in the right position, in the right place. I can get things done. I do them at a high quality. So do the other people around me. I can count on them. I know they'll do what they say, when they say. They'll keep their agreements. The quality of work will be high. That kind of a culture is a powerful culture. And it really is important in this aspect of emotional intelligence, because you can't build or construct a high trust culture without having a high emotional intelligence. Because those inner hidden drivers that are down in our subconscious are what is producing what's showing up. And until I learn how to deal with that and govern that, be aware of that, take responsibility and move forward, I can't really step into these components powerfully. It's enough on that for now. I want to, and I'm not even going to say that either. I'm going to move along. I want to show you now a brief teaching video. I say brief, it's one of the longer ones I've done. It's about 18 minutes, but we'll have some time at the end. And I want you to really pay attention here, take some notes, because I want to explain to you the system, the transformation model that we use, because it really is an emotional intelligence system. I mean, it's more than that, but that at the core, the three main pieces of this inducer formula you can see right there are reveal, respond, resolve. It is self-awareness, personal responsibility, and sustained motivation, continuing action. And so I want to explain it on a 30,000 foot, but then it goes right down and gives you a couple of key skills and tools. This personal investigator, playing detective. How do I grow my self-awareness? You're going to learn how to do that. What does taking responsibility look like, sound like? And I know you know this, but we can all grow. That's why we're here. And there's some tips there and some understandings and frameworks. So, with that said, I want to play this. It may take just a moment here for it to come up. There it is. All right. Let's see if we get this. Give me just a moment. We'll have her going.
Randy Bixby, Character Genetics, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about really one of the core pieces of all the work that I'm doing in the workshops and coaching and consulting. This is really the fruit of what's come out of 6 years in the house of prayer and all the 23 years of ministry experience prior to that. It really comes down to a practical way, a how to transform myself and others, ministries, businesses, families. I mean, this is exciting to me because there's a lot of talk, and rightfully so, about being transformed. I mean, that's Romans 12:2-3. We're transformed, the Word of God says, by the renewing of our minds, so we can test and prove the good, pleasing, perfect will, right, of God. And this says, don't think of yourself more highly than you ought, but soberly. And I believe this. There's no more sober way to think about things than the way that God thinks about them. God has perfect, sober thinking. And so the inducer is, it comes from, that word inducer comes from molecular biology, actually. And I'm so excited to share it with you, so I'm just going to jump in. In the house of prayer, I began to see, man, Lord, there's so many promises, so much that's available to me, to believers. I mean, I believe that the fullness of God dwells in us. That's what it says in Colossians chapter 2. Think about that for a moment. The fullness of God dwells in us. That there's no resource in God that is not available to me and even within me if I understand it and know how to access it and align with it. That's a powerful thought. And it's easy to see for me in my life and as others that share this, what are the places in our lives where we're not experiencing the fullness of God? Where is it where there's anything that disagrees with God? Well, I see it a lot. Where's their confusion? Where's their doubt? Where's their lack or poverty? Where is their, brokenness in relationships? Where is their hate instead of love? Where is their, we can go on and on. I think many of us as leaders, and I'm speaking specifically to leaders, we ask ourselves these questions. How can I serve myself and people to change, literally transform? That's our mission, to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. And equipping is something that, in my view, we do a pretty poor job of in the church. We give, information, and we push and peddle information and ideas. But the inducer is actually a process and a way to live. It's a transformation model. And that I can employ in my life, in my business, in my family, in my church, in my ministry, and actually get different results. I say it this way, from the inside out. Because as I change in my character, my core thinking and values, I'm able to shift my own results and the results of my sphere as I grow in that authority. And so the inducer was really born out of this time in the house of prayer with God and wanting to see transformation. I was at a place in my life through there where I was praying more than I ever had before. I was more devout than ever before, and still my health was bad, my marriage wasn't that great, my finances were the worst place that they've been in my life during that season. And so there was this incongruency between passionately going after God and loving Him with all, and yet what the fruit of my life was demonstrating, the measurements of of those metrics that I was talking about. And I sought the Lord and had some revelation, went through some training, and all of a sudden the light bulb began to go off, and the Holy Spirit began to get my attention, and I began to see, wow, God's not the problem, I'm the problem. And it's my thinking that's the problem, because I have available to me the fullness of God. The Scripture says, I'm one with Him, He's one with me, He lives in me, the fullness of God is in me, that the Holy Spirit will search even the deep things in the heart of God and make them known to me. That's what the Word says. And so I had all of this potential and limitless possibility, but I had very limited results. And I finally reached a point where I wasn't okay with that. I began to work this out with the Lord. And I began to see things change. I began to get healthier. My marriage began to improve. My finances began to go up. I began to be more equipped to equip others than I've ever been. I tell you, the last 2 years, 3 years in my life have been the most fruitful years of the last 23 in a measurable way. I mean, I'm trusting and hoping there are a lot of things I don't know about that are going to be, rewarded when that day comes through prayer and faithfulness. But I can tell you from a obvious, measurable way, the last 2 to 3 years have been by far the most impactful in the lives of others, the most long-lasting, eternal fruit has been created. And it's primarily because of what I'm going to show you right now. And so I was seeking the Lord as a part of this and said, Lord, I'm seeing this change. What is this? How do I bring this to people? Because it was so amazing for me and those I was, beginning to share it with. And this is what he said. And, I believe the Lord speaks to him. And I was listening in prayer, and I heard, he said, Randy, you're an inducer. I didn't even know what that meant. I was thinking, what is that? Is that, that sounds like birthing babies or something. And I mean, that's kind of cool, but, I'd rather be a catalyst. This is what I said to the Lord. I said, I'd rather be a catalyst. Thinking, I don't really know what I'm talking about, probably. And he said, no, you're an inducer. And so I said, well, okay, what is that? And I began to spend time with them, began to research, and I actually called up Iowa State University and talked to one of their molecular biologists, and they explained to me what an inducer was. And there's a slide that's going to pop up here and kind of show you and read that to you. But an inducer, what happens is in our DNA, we have the design codes written, the gene, the genetic code, right? It's written. The design codes of all the limitless possibility of who we are and what we're to accomplish and be. They're there. And for them to actually manifest, for there to be a completion of that design, they have to go through a process called transcription. So the DNA splits apart literally. Messenger RNA comes in, copies the codes, and then it's translated into proteins, and then those are the building blocks that go out and manifest. They make the design codes a reality in the completion of design. And that process is an amazing process. But what happens is there are enzymes that want to repress it. They're called repressors. And they stop or they inhibit or they slow that transcription translation process. So they slow and prevent the design codes from manifesting as completion of design. And within that picture, in biology, is this amazing model. And what an inducer does is an inducer is another enzyme. It comes into that environment. It reveals the repressor. It shows what is the limited, what's stopping this from happening. And then it neutralizes it. It responds to it, and it neutralizes those repressors so that once they're out of the way, there is an acceleration in the completion of design. And that whole picture is what this practical system of transformation. This is Romans 12:2-3 in action. You wonder, how do I disciple people? How do I cause them to grow? These are questions I was asking. How do I really equip people? What I'm discovering is this is the way. And it's through experience learning. Experience learning in our workshops, coaching, and consulting. It is where there's an emotional implantation. And I don't mean it's all like, whoa, emotional. There's just, we get in touch with things through modules and games and exercises. And there's people that really get in touch with who they are and why they're here and what's stopping them. And they have some revelations, which is the first part of this model, okay, of this system. It's to have a revelation. That's the name of our first workshop, Reveal. This is the first most important step in real transformation. I have to have a revelation of what, number one, what's limiting me, and it's my beliefs that are limiting me, my agreements, what I choose to believe. And secondly, what are the limitless possibilities? I have to have a revelation of those things because we can tell responsibilities. We can tell people and tell ourselves all we want. Yes, you're limited. You have fullness of God available to you. You can heal the sick. You've got power to get wealth. You can transform nations. We can talk, and we have been. The trouble is, we don't have any results to back it up for the most part, because we're talking from something we don't know experientially. but to have a revelation of what is the thinking in my own heart, which the Bible says that's the hidden part. It's the part that I'm not aware of. That's why self-awareness is so important in leadership and in living. Because, I mean, if you read any leadership book that's worth anything today, you'll see they're talking about self-awareness. And what's exciting is, in our workshops and the work, what we do is, there's a way to cultivate self-awareness, to discover what's going on underneath the watermark so that I really see why I'm producing the results I am. And it's called playing personal investigator. Personal, I don't know if you can read this, but personal investigator or detective. And this is what we do through the workshops, through the modules, through the coaching, and it's becoming aware of what are my feelings and what are my behaviors. And then backwards engineering that to, okay, now, once I'm aware of my feelings or my behaviors, what is the thinking in my heart, in that subconscious place, in the hidden place? What's the thinking causing that behavior or causing that feeling? The answer to that is a belief system. It's an awareness of a way that I see the world, a lens that I see the world or myself or God or my spouse or money or love or impact or leadership or influence. It's the way that I see the world. It's reality painted the way I see it. And to cultivate that, that's a skill. And we work hard on that in the Reveal workshop. But that's just the first step. Because I can see what's wrong and I can see what's available. And if I'm stuck, and see, this is the inducer, right? It comes in and it reveals. This is what's stopping you from your dreams, your goals, your promises. This is what it is. And this is what's possible. If you stay stuck there, however, though, that can be really depressing. If you remember, if you've watched The Hole, I talked about what's in the distance between where I'm at and where I want to be. There's a lot of junk in there. And to stay there can be not very helpful. So the next step of the model, and this is the second workshop, is called Respond. Respond. And this is all about personal responsibility. Personal responsibility. This is where we get rid of all the blaming other people or blaming the economy or blaming the Democrats or the Republicans, blaming God, blaming myself, being in shame, being in guilt, being afraid, being stuck. Some of you might relate to this. And it's getting past that, taking personal responsibility. I am responsible for what I believe. And I am responsible for my choices. And I'm responsible for my results. It's not chance and circumstance and the devil and God and everything else. It's up to me. I'm responsible. At the end of my days, there's a day coming where I'm going to give an account for everything that I did, every word I said, every choice I made. I'm responsible for that. The devil's not going to, stand in my place. God's not going to stand in my. I'm going to stand for me and give an account what I chose to believe. Oh my goodness. So there is a sense of personal responsibility that I believe is critical as leaders in the body of Christ that we bring to ourselves, to those we lead. Listen, we have a revelation, first of all, not just somebody else's idea, but a personal revelation. What's stopping me and what's possible. And then I take responsibility to act on what I see. And I'm held accountable. Really, I had this a good friend who was a former professor at the University of Michigan, author, great guy. Been working with him in Detroit along with a number of others. And he says, Randy, the second workshop, this is a 90-day workshop. And he said, this is really an accountability apparatus. That's what he named it. I thought, that's true. And so it's, how do we walk together in relationship with a group of people where we're holding ourselves personally responsible, where there's an accountability apparatus. There's a lot of tools, and I'm going to give you a lot of those, and you can certainly get them in the workshop or through the coaching, but tools to be personally responsible. How do I track what I'm doing, set goals, make progress, and shift my thinking and my results? And that happens all through Respond, the second part of this inducer transformation system. Now, the third part is called Resolve. That's the third workshop, by the way. And Resolve is simply taking unwavering action that agrees with God. Unwavering adherence to God's ways, God's systems, God's plans. And not only that, you can put it this way, toward my goals, toward my dreams, okay? This Resolve's a 5-day workshop where I'm training leaders in the skill set around coaching, around experience learning methodology. In other words, how do I lead this way? How do I become an inducer in my church, my business, my family, my relationships, what I'm leading? How do I become this change agent, this transformational skill set? How do I lead people into revelation and myself? How do I lead them in personal responsibility? And how do I assist them in taking unwavering action that agrees with God and their dreams and actually make it happen? And here's what's exciting. When I live this model every day, I get a revelation about what's stopping me and what's possible in me through the Christ that's in me. And I take responsibility for it. And then I take action. And this is so important. Action. We've talked enough. It's time to take action. And when I take action, then something happens. I get a different result. You can see that. And then I can do it again and again and again and again and again. This is transformation in action. This is great. This is more than just talk. This is a practical system, part of the character genetics transformative leadership systems that we employ. Pretty much all that we do at some level has to do with this work and the skills around it, the tools around it. And I'm excited for you to get this and to learn what it's more and practice what it's like to be a detective and to take responsibility, free from the guilt, the shame, the fear, the blame, all the excuses, and to take action that agrees with God, especially if you're a leader. And I'm talking right now to leaders or leaders of leaders. You're responsible for equipping others and leading and impact and influence others. This process is something that is absolutely, in my view, a necessity. To understand experience, learning, and the value of leading people into transformation where they get it. You know, when somebody has a revelation, they don't argue with their own data. If I'm thinking about things and I have a revelation through a process I'm going through, I own that because I see that. It's different than somebody telling me. And so that's what's so powerful. I get it when I do the work on me. I have a revelation. I take responsibility. And I take action in an unwavering way. And I continue to do that until I transform my thinking at a core level, which is, as I define a character. And I transform then my results. The inducer transformation model, transformation system is powerful. And if you've got some more questions about it, I'd love to hear your responses. If you'd like to experience it, I hope you'll join us for a workshop or engage with coaching. But this right here is the real thing. This is what's changing things in Lima, Peru, in leaders in Detroit, and other cities around the country where I'm taking this. And I hope that you'll take it on. So this is Randy Bixby, Character Genetics, Accelerated, Measurable, Sustainable Change. Thanks for watching.
Okay. Well, sorry, I know some of you had some technical difficulties. It played all good here. I don't know, it may come down to internet connection or something, but I do have this being recorded, so you will have access to it, and generally the recordings pick it up all pretty good. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that you are ready, because we're going to do something here. We've got about 15 or so minutes left, and so here's what I want to do. I like to not just talk about stuff, I like to do stuff to learn. So we are going to do an exercise here for a moment and practice growing in our emotional intelligence. Okay, growing in specifically self-awareness, personal responsibility, and sustained motivation. Now, how can we do that possibly in 15 minutes? Well, we can. We're going to do it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take out a clean sheet of paper. Hopefully you've got a notebook or something, the back of a sheet of paper and a pen. Take that out if you can. If you don't have it, you might want to open up another window in Notes or a Word document or something, and you're going to be typing away. You can minimize the webinar and hopefully you can still hear it. But here's what we're going to do. I would like you to, you're going to have about 90 seconds, so it's going to be intense. It's going to be a quick time period. And not yet, but in a moment, you're going to, in 90 seconds, I'll get my timer out here so that I can be true to that time. 90 seconds, you are going to write out what is the biggest change that you would like to make in any part of your life in the next 90 days. The biggest change. I mean, and this is what I mean now, something that is not going well or not going to the measure that you want it to go. Something falling far short of your joy and passion and peace and all that. I mean, something it's right now maybe irritating, might be really upsetting, might even be just frustrating. You might just thinking, oh really? Whatever you're thinking about. On your marks, you're going to write down, and I want you to write down what it's going to look like at the end of 90 days when it's perfect, when it's the way you want it. What does it look like? We just begin a flow and a stream of flow of what is this big thing that you want to change so badly, and what does it look like when it's all changed, okay? On your marks, get set, go. 90 seconds. It's 60 seconds left. Thirty seconds left. Five, four, three, two, one. Stop. All right, put your writing down, stop typing. All right, 90 seconds. That wasn't very long, and it's on purpose. So I want you to go to your chat bar over on the right bottom part of your screen. I want you to put in the little chat bar, and this is where we're practicing this personal investigator thing, this detective. What feelings and what behavior came up for you? Okay, we're not judging it. We're not saying it's right, wrong, good, bad. We're just here in discovery mode. We're looking for our behavior and our feelings. When you began to jump in and think about something that's not going well, that you really want to change, and you started writing down what it would look like, I'm quite sure that certain feelings started to come up and certain behaviors. Some of you might even have got stuck, perhaps. But if you would, yeah, thanks. Please, everybody, join in and just type, what did you notice about you, your feeling, or your behavior that came up as you were going into that? So let's look. Longing, frustration, yearning, doubt, weariness, tired, yeah. Hopeful it could change. Ted, frustration, yeah. Anything else come up? Keep them flowing in there just to give us a little bit of stuff to work on here. Incomplete, lack of focus, yes. Determination, anger, yeah. Thank you for your vulnerability. Okay, now here's what I want you to capture. You wrote what you wrote down uh, on purpose. In other words, there's a reason why. There's a reason why you felt what you felt. There's a reason why maybe you didn't write the most glowing or huge big changes, or maybe you even altered, by the time it went through your processing and down your arm and out your hand or into the keys, you might even have really changed some things about what you thought was possible or not possible. In fact, the very fact you chose what you chose determines some things about what you even see as possible or impossible, as hard or easy, as frustrating or determination, and so that is part of growing in this emotional intelligence, because now you are discovering, wow, underneath the surface, in that subconscious place, I have some feelings going on here. I have some behavior that came up. And I want you to think now this next question, and I want to pull this document up. We're going to walk through this series of questions real quick. It may take me a moment to get there now. Let's see how I can get there. But I want you to think, you can even write this down as well. What is the thinking that caused that feeling, that behavior? What caused it? What's the thinking that caused the weariness, or the hope, or the anger, or the frustration? And when you think, well, ask yourself, what's the thinking that's causing that? And I want you to write it down in the chat bar if you would. Share with us what thinking is underneath those feelings, because physiologically that's how it works. Our thoughts actually create our feelings. If you would, just share it down again in the chat bar. I'm not hitting what I want here. I'll get there. It's been that way before. Okay. Looking back. Anything else? What thinking caused those feelings that you noticed? Repeated groundhog. Oh, that Groundhog Day, yeah. Determination. I have what it takes to surge ahead. Yeah. And it's so interesting. Again, this isn't right or wrong or good or bad. It's just what is. And it's what I expect. So that's really good awareness. So here's the series of questions, and if you're taking notes, these are the ones you want to write down, because this is the process I want to teach you of playing this personal investigator. It's really the process of increasing your emotional intelligence. Okay? What is my behavior and feelings? So we've done that. So growing in asking that question, let's see, what did I just do today? Or what did I not do? Both are a behavior. And how did I feel about it? And just to be real with that, be present with that, then ask this next question like we did. What is the thinking that caused them? That answer to that question is the discovery of a belief system that your emotional intelligence, that you're down underneath the surface, it's creating. And here's what's so interesting and so powerful, and I know we've got on the line today, a lot of people that have a biblical worldview. Here's Proverbs 23:7 in action. As a man or woman thinketh in their heart, so are they. So in that subconscious place, when I have a thought, I have what it takes to surge ahead. Guess what's going to happen? Guess what will show up? I am how I think in my heart. So if I think I have what it takes, I'm going to show up. Guess what's going to show up? I'm going to get it done. And likewise, if I'm feeling it's just going to happen again, it's just the same thing over and over. And I get that. I'm not being critical or judgmental. I've been there. But when that's present, guess what's going to show up? The same thing over. It's the most amazing thing. It really is. It really is a powerful revelation to understand that it's really the thoughts and intents in the deep places of my heart that are creating the issues of my life. Proverbs 4:23. Out of the heart flow the issues of life. You think, well, no, life's causing me to feel this way. No, it isn't. No, it isn't at some level. And it's, well, is it the chicken or is it the egg? Here's the point. Thinking creates feeling, and feeling anchors in at a very deep level, a belief system. And when I agree with that embedded belief system, that's what I end up creating. It's how I see my circumstances. So, of course, that's what it'll create. I hope that's making sense. It's very powerful. And here's the next questions I want us to walk through in the few minutes we have left together. Okay, here's the third one. Where else in my life is that thinking showing up? So we just discovered some thinking in a little writing exercise for 90 seconds. Okay, and if you discovered your thinking, you know, anger, looking back's been that way, incomplete, frustrated, hopeful it could change, weary, doubt, yearning. Okay, that's what came up in this 90 seconds. So guess what? Now let's look at in other areas of my life, especially things maybe that I really want that I'm not able to seem to pull off. Because something is stopping what you really want from happening. So this is part of that discovery process. Emotional intelligence says, okay, I recognize my emotion and the thinking causing it. Now, where else in my life is it showing up? I think if you spend enough time with this, you'll begin to see that how we do anything is how we do everything. That's T. Harv Eker's quote. That really, if it's happening in one place, at some level, I'm seeing the whole world that way because it's a lens in my heart of how I see things. It's what I believe. It's what I agree with. So all of a sudden, a little revelation I have in some training and a 90-second exercise becomes an awareness of why the rest of my life seems to be the way it is. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm weary, but wow, now I'm seeing something. Okay, that's step one. The next part, personal responsibility. And part of that is looking at, okay, what are the real costs and benefits of that way of seeing things? Just be more, just in an analytical way, say, well, what's it costing me to be weary or to be frustrated? Because my belief is that I'm making myself feel that way by thinking the way I'm thinking. And I actually have control over how I think. I've been given the ability to take responsibility for my thinking. I'm going to give account for it one day. And I'm the one that's, you know, the captain of this ship. And so it's my thinking that I'm responsible to control. So what are the costs and benefits? That's a really important question. Take time with that. We don't have time necessarily right now, but write that question down. Spend some time with that, even with, you know, with yourself, with a friend, with the Lord. What's it costing, and what's the benefit? And believe it or not, we only do things because we get something out of it. It's very interesting. I don't have time to develop that thought, but it's true. Even being frustrated or being angry, I'm that way because I get something out of it. I get to be whatever. I get to be right. I get to be stuck. I get to be helpless. I get to be justified why I'm grumpy or why I mean, whatever it is, we behave because we get something out of it. Now, here's the shift and the last part of the inducer formula, okay? First there's revelation, then there's responsibility, and then there's resolve. I take action. So here's that next important question for you. What is my commitment moving forward? If I can choose, and I can, now that I see what I see, and I do, what do I want to do about it moving forward? How do I want to think different? How do I want to act different? How do I do that consistently with others? And that is a tool, several tools actually, to be able to grow and increase your emotional intelligence and grow and increase the results that you want, to grow and increase your awareness of what's going on inside, you know, under that watermark, and being able to take responsibility and create some new results that bring joy and bring peace and bring an impact to the world around us. So we're just toward the end of our time. If you got any questions, go ahead and type them up just real quickly. If you need to go, you certainly can go. I do want to just recommend a couple of books. If you can see here, this is a book by Dr. Karen Leaf, Who Switched Off My Brain. And researchers say that 87% of illnesses that plague us today are direct results of our thought life. We think about the effects, what we think about rather, affects us physically and emotionally. It's an epidemic of toxic emotions. This was a real good, formative book for me, and also a book I really like. I don't know if you'll find it the same, but I found it very helpful. It's called Drive by Daniel Pink. And the subtitle is The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. And it's very intriguing to me. There's actually scientific and study behind it, and that shows that the whole carrot and stick thing is not the best way to modify behavior. There's something deeper. It's actually self-actualization. It's actually self-awareness and authenticity is my language, but it's the same principles. And he's got some great tools, and there's a lot of stuff on emotional intelligence. These are two that I just happen to have here handy at my desk that I really have enjoyed. With that, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to call it a day here. I want to thank you for joining us for the webinar. And yeah, still having some problems. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know. We may want to check internet connections or something. I'll see what I can figure out on my end too. I will notify you when I am able to get this uploaded. It should take 24 hours or so for me to get these uploaded, and you'll have them. Can you get today's screen slides? Certainly. If you'd like the screen slides, email me. Let me know. I'll just email them on to you. I just appreciate if you don't change them. And if you use them, don't change them, leave them. If you're going to, make up your own, that's fine. Then just make up your whole totally separate ones. That's fine. Other than that, have a great weekend.